Hi everyone, this video is going to help you begin learning each of the data mining tools on the Analyze tab in Excel. So to start, make sure you have open the data file. It's probably posted on your Learning Suite schedule. It's probably going to be on the first or second day of the BI module. So on my class, it's right here, day 1 on this data file. So as the last video, this is the same data file that comes with the data mining add-in that you may or may not have installed. So when you download that, open it up. It's this DM add-in sample data. Let me optimize this to fit the screen here. Okay. With this open, we want to click on the Table Analysis Tools Sample tab, and this gives us our bike buyers data. So we have information here about all the people who came into the store that was willing to give us this information, and we also know whether they did or did not purchase a bike. What we want to do is put our cursor somewhere in this table so that the Table Tools context-sensitive menu is available. Remember, if we click off the table, it disappears. When we click on, it comes back. We want to click on the Analyze tab so that we get these 7 tools right here. So, first one, Analyze Key Influencers. This was in your slides on the data mining concepts, the key influencers analysis. The idea here is that we want to perform, if you've had stats, something similar to a regression analysis. So a regression is actually one of the formulas used by this tool, although this tool can use about 5 or 6 different formulas to run this particular analysis. The idea is to pick a column that you want to predict. Typically it's going to be something like purchase bike, or we could actually predict any of these other ones, but we'll stick with purchase bike. Columns to be used for the analysis. This lets us select which ones we want to include as independent variables, whereas purchase bike is our dependent variable in the regression formula. These are all of our independent variables. And we want to remove anything that would add noise to the analysis, anything that would be random or not have any influence on whether or not someone purchased a bike. For example, their customer ID. That's going to have no influence. Now in this case, the rest of our variables are pretty valid options. Sometimes you'll have data though that has a bunch of variables that are very, very similar. For example, if you had age and birth date, okay, they're almost identical. Age is going to be a number, and birth date is going to, depending on the time of year, it's going to be very close to what the age calculation would be. So if I had both of those, I would not include both age and birth date. I would pick one of them. You never want to have multiple variables in your independent variable list that are very, very highly correlated. So we go through and we pick, make sure that we don't violate that assumption. We hit OK. We hit Run, and it's sending this data in Excel over to Server Analysis Services, where it's being processed over there, and then SQL Server sends it back with this discrimination chart option, which I'll come to in a second. For now, I'm just going to close it and look at the results. What this tells us, this is the cool part, this tells us that in predicting that people will purchase a bike, the single strongest predictor, as indicated by this bar, is when they have a value of 0 for the cars column. So people with no cars, or possibly 1 car, which is a smaller predictor, are most likely to purchase a bike. These are also people who are single, and in this case people who live in the Pacific region. So this tells us great information about who we're marketing, and if we can gather data about potential customers that don't shop at our store, that we know don't have cars, and there are ways to get data like that, then that gives us a much better target population to market. So up here then we have people with 2 cars. It's the biggest indicator that no, they won't purchase a bike. Similarly, married people tend not to purchase bikes, or at least the type of bikes we sell at our store. So these bars will show up if they are, if any of these are statistically significant indicators of your dependent variable. Sometimes you'll get bars that are very small. This region, North America, is kind of small, but it's still big enough that I think it's useful. Sometimes those bars get even smaller. In that case, even though they're statistically significant, they're not practically significant, and I wouldn't include them in future models. So let's do one more example where we're going to use a discrimination report. So come back here to Table Analysis Tools Sample again, And this time, click Analyze Key Influencers, and instead let's predict a column that has more than just 2 outcome variables, or outcome values. So for example, let's predict education. There's about 5 different options for education. And once again, let's deselect ID and include everything else. Hit OK and run. Sending the data over to SQL Server, processing it, bringing it back. Alright, now, what we have here is each of the values, or bars, in different colors for each of the values of education, so that we're looking at the factors that impact each of them separately. So we'll get slightly different results if we were to compare just 2 of these, like bachelor's to partial college, than comparing all 5 of them at once. And sometimes we only care about the difference between a couple of them. So what we can do is create what's called a discrimination report. So let's say we want to compare bachelor's to partial college. Well, we can select them from the list, add the report. Now it says, okay, comparing those 2 only, here are the factors in order that predict both. And now we're comparing the bars together. Instead of having the bars independent from each other, the bars are relative to the 2 different dependent values from bachelor's from partial college. So it's basically what this tells us is that it's easier to predict bachelor's degree than it is to predict partial college, because the largest indicators are for the bachelor's degree. In this case, that means people who are in management have bachelor's degrees, whereas people who are manual laborers have partial college. That makes sense. Management, or people who have bachelor's degrees, are more likely to be older, whereas people who are have partial college are likely to be relatively younger than the bachelor's degrees. This also makes sense because it takes a while. It takes longer to get a bachelor's degree than partial college. Notice income is a factor for partial college. They typically make less than $39,000. However, it's not a practically significant factor for a bachelor's degree. So what that means is people could have bachelor's degrees and still make all kinds of incomes, including less than $39,000. Now down here, here's income, a higher one, as a statistically significant indicator, from 39 to 71. However, here's a case where that bar is so small that I would say this is probably not a practically significant indicator. Definitely, I would say that all of these are not practically significant, including that bottom one there. And then these here are kind of arguable. Also likely not practically significant. That's the Analyze Key Influencers tool, and that does it for this video.